to another video. Today we're going to be breaking down the proper way to fix a snapped rod. I have a extra ultralight rod that I built a few years ago. I had about a 12-inch smallie on it, so kind of overpowered for what that rod's meant for. And because of that, it snapped right in the middle. We got lucky with where it broke, so it's going to make for a very good video as far as how to fix this the proper way. And so in this video, we'll be breaking down the equipment needed, tools required, the material that we'll use to kind of fix the repair, and then go into actually putting the new guide on and kind of almost doing a little mini rod building scenario. So I got to get the shop clean first, so we're going to work on that, and then that way we got a nice clean table to start building this rod. And just like that, we got ourselves a nice clean workshop to work in to get started on getting this rod repaired, which here it is. So this was a 2/8 fly rod blank that I bought, and I decided I wanted to convert it over to a spinning setup. But every now and then you get yourself a big fish and you end up with a rod that is broken right in half. I got really lucky though with where it broke. You should be able to see it. So you can see right there, there's like that kind of goes from shiny to that flat. All right, so here is everything that we're gonna need to repair this rod. The very first thing, of course, is how we're gonna reattach it. And what I like to use, I found these on Amazon for, I think it's about $11 for 10 of them, is a carbon fiber tube. This one here, I measured out, is for specifically for this rod, it's 3mm outside diameter, 2mm inside diameter, and so that rod tube is only about 1 millimeter thick. So with that, that gives me a lot more flex to be able to kind of not change the action too much on this rod. It is going to go from a moderate, probably to a moderate fast, I would say. I don't think it's going to go to a fast because this is kind of, I mean, it is pretty close to the center. So it might go to a fast action, but I think it'll go to a moderate fast. So that'll change maybe how I use the lures, but that's the very first thing. After that, of course, I personally like using 5-minute epoxy. You could go 30-minute, but I like the 5-minute. You can get it at Lowe's, so you don't have to be a rod builder to do this repair. You can just go to the hardware store, spend $6 or $7, get yourself a tube of epoxy, and put this back together. Now, other than that, the only other two tools that you don't necessarily need but are going to be helpful, one, of course, is going to be sandpaper. This is just so that way if you get any excess glue on the outside, you can lightly sand it down. The other thing you can do is, because since fishing rods are tapered, this rod, of course, is 3mm top to bottom. So I can only stick this in about 2 or so inches, which is probably enough, but I want to go to about the 3 to 4 inch mark. So I'm going to actually taper this down slightly so I can go farther up the rod. That way there's more strength farther up it, not so close to any of the stress fractures that might be in this graphite tube. Outside of that, the only other tool you'll really need as far as making life helpful is going to be a micrometer. So I use this micrometer so that way I could find out the inside diameter. So what I did was I would take the rod that broke, and you can kind of just stick it right inside on this kind of inside piece that measures inside diameter. And I was roughly getting about 3mm, give or take, when I was doing this. So that told me that I couldn't really go any bigger than that if I wanted it to go farther up the rod tube. Outside of that, that is everything you need to fix this rod. For me personally, because this rod broke right on a guide, I'm going to have to rethread this guide on. So I have, of course, my rod building jig that I made myself. But with that, you're going to need thread to put the guide back on, the guide itself, masking tape, which I use just to take, I cut a thin strip off, and I use this to wrap around the guide. That way it can be held onto the blank, and it gives me the adjustability to get it perfectly straight again. And then outside of that would be a razor blade. That way I can, when I'm threading the guide on, I can cut the thread off. And potentially any excess epoxy if it's just a real small amount or something like that. But all in all, you really only need glue, the rod, and sandpaper, and you could do this job. The micrometer helps making sure that you get it accurate and the perfect rod for this setup. And then everything else is just more so pertaining to how this rod and where this rod broke. So we're going to actually now get into repairing it. So I'm going to go ahead and get to sanding this rod tube down a little bit. I'm going to use the whole thing. Like I said earlier, the other rod that I did, I only did about 3 or 4 inches, mainly because I didn't want to change the weight of a really high-end Japanese rod. I also didn't want to change the action too much. So I went ahead and just cut a little piece off. But with this one, because this tube is so flexible, I want to go as far past the fracture point. I'm going to go ahead and just be able to use this whole tube. So I'm going to go ahead and we're just going to lightly sand this to see how close we can get to getting a little bit higher up the rod blank. It's already sanded off pretty quickly. And I'm using, I think, 600 grit sandpaper. Yeah. So you could go with 320 and this would go so much faster. But I just want to take my time, make sure I do things right. But the nice thing is with buying a 10-pack of carbon tubes, if you mess up the first time, obviously you got plenty of material left to fix your mistakes and to learn from. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and start doing some test fitting. We don't want this to flex out and cause more stress fractures, but we want it to be as snug as we can. So before, I was getting about 2 inches or so on this little carbon tube. So we'll see how far we can go now that we've sanded it down. And I'm just gonna go just till it feels snug. Because again, I don't want this to flare out, cause more cracks, look more obvious that there was a break there. So I think right there will do us. And that gets us in kind of like I wanted, about 3 inches or so. So before we were up here, we've pretty much doubled our area. So now this is gonna go up a good 3 or 4 inches from where it broke. So I'm pretty pleased with that. So I think we're gonna start there. Now we're gonna go ahead on to gluing. All right, we're ready to go ahead and start getting some glue in this rod blank. So what I do is I go ahead and I just use the back side of a cheap paintbrush just to grab this epoxy, and then I just bring it in. And I'll do a couple drops of this. You don't need a ton. You're only attaching 2 pieces of carbon together with less than probably a 1/4 millimeter of space between them at most. So I just go make sure that there's plenty in there. Do the same on the other blank, or the other end of this rod. And since we're doing a lot more down this one, I'm going to try and shove as much as I can in there. And we'll also coat the rod blank as well. Go ahead, do this bottom side first. I'm just painting just a little bit of epoxy down the blank. Overkill, but it just guarantees that there's enough adhesion all the way down this that you're not going to have any rattling inside your blank, which of course then also just adds extra pressure points because it's moving around. It also just makes sure that it is as secure as possible. So you can see all the kind of epoxy that's coming out of it, which is fine. We'll now this part a little bit. This is the part that'll go in the top of the rod that broke. But not too much, because again, it's just gonna blow out anyway. And now we'll just slide it on. All right, guys, so it is the next day. Just got home from work and gonna do a little bit more to this rod. So as you can see, it is back to being one piece. Kind of like I talked about before. See if there's a good way to kind of demonstrate it. It did get a little bit stiffer, kind of in the middle of the rod. It's exactly where that new carbon tube is. But overall, it's still going to be a crazy, crazy light rod. It's probably now still an extra ultralight, but instead of a moderate action, it did kind of become fast now that centerpiece is so stiff. But it looks really good. Next stage is going to be shaving off all of the little bit of excess glue that is on the outside of the rod so that we can get ready for the guide and getting the new thread on and getting it finished. So pretty much all I do is I take a razor blade and I just lightly and slowly scrape off the glue that's on the outside. So I really didn't want to do that. The other thing I could do is I could sit there. I don't know if I do have a lighter, I think. Yeah. So we can come in and just slightly heat this up. And it'll actually soften the epoxy on the outside. Don't want to go too crazy. But yeah, you can see it right there. I can literally just peel it right off. So actually we're going to do that. It's a lot safer. So just heat it up. Now, one thing that they recommend, if this was not a break on the threads, is to add a little bit of thread and epoxy on the outside, which you certainly can do. The way that I would probably go about it is, if you wanted to spend the money, I would come in and get, I think it's nylon thread, or no, sorry, silk thread, white silk thread, because when you put the epoxy on, it actually goes clear, so you'll still see just the rod blank, but you'll get that strength that you need to kind of just add for extra protection. So that's good right there. So we're now ready for the guide, ready for thread and glue up. So I'm going to grab my jig, get this reel back off, and we'll go ahead and get the guide on. All right, so here's my rod building jig I built myself out of just some 1x oak material from Lowe's. I did two 1x4s, I think by 6 foot, to kind of act as the base. I then took some more 1x4, made these little V-shaped holders. I could probably do a third one just to add a little bit of extra strength, but I did that, and then I built this little jig out of funny enough, a broken rod to kind of act as the tensioner that the thread goes through, and then 3 different spots to add thread, so that way if I'm doing different colors or different wraps, I'm able to do it all at the same time. Everything is just attached with wing nut, so I can take this, unscrew it, slide it where it needs to go. The same with the thread and the other one as well. I think all in all, I mean, I don't know so I built this kind of before wood prices went crazy. So I don't know what this would cost now. Maybe we'll look it up. But I would say probably around 40 or 50 bucks, you can build yourself a rod building jig, and you could do it out of pine. I did oak just because I knew it was going to last longer and be a little bit stronger. But yeah, you could use pretty much anything. The other thing I did do with this is, you see these 2 little holes here. There's another one there and another one there. That just acts as the actual way of just keeping this in place. So this doesn't, even if I had this all the way unscrewed, that rod is just going to keep it right in the track. For as far as this goes, there's a rod here and 2 here, so that way it stays on the outside of the track and slides back and forth on it. But we're going to go ahead, move these down to where we need to do the new guide. Slide this one down. About right there. Then we'll grab the guide. Aha! Just when you think you forgot it or lost it, that's where it is. So with the way that this is going to go, because I want to try to get as close as I can to where it used to be, I'm going to actually come down just ever so slightly, or sorry, go up ever so slightly, just so that way, instead of the break being in the middle of this and potentially being seen, we'll put it towards the end of the foot of the guide, so that way there's some thread beyond it and some thread above it, and then that way it's perfectly tight and secure. So let me grab a sharper razor blade, and we'll go ahead and cut this tape. So just take a little piece like this, cut in half, and then all we want to do is just take a thin strip of it. Even that's probably too thick. Try and do one a little bit thinner. That's pretty good there. Oh yeah, that's perfect. So we'll take this. Like I said, we want to kind of have the foot near the break, so we have plenty above it. You just add the tape to it, lightly tape it around. I'll do one more wrap just to make sure that it's as tight as can be.
And then I just add another wing nut and a little washer just to kind of add a little bit extra tension. Let's see which way I'm supposed to go with this. I don't know. It feels like maybe this way. Yep. Okay, perfect. So now I'm just trying to find exactly the right tension. So one other thing I have in my shop that I use a lot, both for lures and for rod building, are these rubber bands. They're meant for your hair, but I use them to kind of just keep tension on the rod. So I'm going to move this a little bit closer so that way the rod's as stiff as can be as I'm putting the thread on. And then I sit there and I have these 2 screws and I just literally just wrap it right around and that holds it in place. You can actually move even a bit more closer to it. That'll do. As far as this part, I don't know if this is necessarily the right way. This is how I've kind of always done it. I basically just wrap around once on the outside, wrap around once on the inside, kind of hold it, and I try to twist the first couple times, leaving the thread on there. Like so. Okay. Now I'm just working on getting the thread nice and tight with each other. Cut the tag end, and we'll save that for later. And I usually try to go right till I'm about to hit the tape. And I take the first layer off, which gives us an extra couple wraps. All right, take the next layer off. Actually, I'll probably just try to break it like so. Now this wrap isn't going to be as pretty as when the rod's new, because obviously that break has kind of flared out a bit, but it should still look all right. So now we're just wrapping the piece that we're going to use once we cut the thread to tie it in a knot, more or less. So that's good right there. Now cut up top. So yep, we're trying to put the line right through the loop. Then we'll take the 2 tag ends of that loop that we added and just pull through. Go ahead and cut that. So now we got thread on, the guide back on. All we have to do now is get it lined up as best as we can. See where that put us. Just ever so slightly. Might have been too much. Trying to see if I can get it to a spot where you guys can see it as well. So it's that 3rd guide. And I'm pretty happy with that. That is just about perfect. Well guys, I believe that is a wrap on this video, no pun intended. The guide is all threaded on, it's ready for epoxy, and then we'll get it on the turntable, let it cure overnight, and then that way if I was going out tomorrow morning, I'd be able to grab this rod and use it to catch as many fish as I wanted. I really hope overall you guys enjoyed this video, but more so I hope you were able to take something away from it. Maybe you had a question that you just weren't quite getting answered on how to do this repair. Or maybe over the weekend a rod broke, or it's been sitting in the garage for a while and it's been broken for a while, and you finally decide, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and get this thing fixed. And this video was able to give you guys all the material and steps needed to do that. Of course, if you didn't and you have any questions, drop them down in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer anything you guys have, in any scenario you have with getting a rod fixed. Or you want to get into rod building and you don't know maybe what that first step should look like. I'll be happy to talk with you guys there. And then of course, if you just want to talk about fishing, maybe you had an awesome catch this weekend, you got 100 fish, or you want to know what to use when you go out to this specific spot, I'll be happy to talk about any of that too. Fishing is a passion and a love, and I'd love to share it with you guys as much as I possibly can. With that, of course, we are close to 100 subscribers. We're only 4 away. If you have any friends that maybe want to Of course, support the channel, maybe get some free lures. We're going to do a 100 subscriber giveaway, so go ahead and share it with them. I really appreciate any support you guys have already given, and we're really close to that mark. So what we'll do is we'll make a video, of course, of me pinning 3 or 4 lures, and then we'll go over the rules for that giveaway, and then we'll give it away in the following videos. So beyond that, though, I hope you guys have a blessed one. If you're watching this 3 years from now, I hope you guys are doing well. I appreciate everything you guys have put into this channel as much as I put in, and I will catch you on the next fishing adventure. Take care.